record all this because here's the deal. This will be a nice, what I call an inoculation for your grade. So when you do your research paper, you understand how important it is. The best grade you can get without doing a research paper, if everything else is 100%, is a C- or D+. That's simple. This is the #1 most important college requirement. Okay, so let's go ahead and jump in. I'm helping you a little bit with this. We had a mix up last hour. I had to go and fix some links here so that students at home could get a fair shake. Looks like I saved that. So let's start with the website and take a look at this. Now, it's the research edition. If you need to listen to this again, you can do that from the comfort of your home. You don't need to be in class to attend this class, right? So if you get quarantined or anything like that, or just a snow day, everything goes on as normal. Okay. So in fact, my biggest class is my World Civ class online. Now here's the thing. You've got this research edition, but then you've got this study guide. And we're going to go ahead and just open it right now. Oh, I still haven't fixed that link. I've got to fix that link. I thought I'd fixed it. Oh, wait a minute. Hang on. I think I did. Let's find out. Yeah, looks like I did. Okay, so there it is. Okay, whew, that was the problem last time. So here, just name, period, as usual. And then I'm giving a quick summary of what happened in the Senate trial. And we'll talk a little bit more about it later. Last week, it was all about the Democrats presenting evidence. And today, it's all what the Republican response was. So this is Republican Day, and it was, the Democrats' day last week. So here we go, quick summary. This trial ended fast. Let me just give you the shorthand of what happened. When the trial starts, both sides got up to 16 hours to present their evidence. 16 hours. Okay, fine. But the Democrats didn't feel they needed all of that. So they stopped at roughly 10 or so. So they went a full day and then part of a day. That meant the prosecution, or excuse me, the defense attorneys, it was their turn. They could take 16 hours too, but they didn't choose to. They knew how the vote was going to turn out. So they kept it really short, 4 hours, done and dusted. Then the senators had a chance to ask questions, and they submitted those questions to the chair, Patrick Leahy, who's the president pro tem of the Senate, and he would read the questions, right? So it was very orderly. Not all the questions were accepted, just, because some had duplicates, this is like this one. Okay, let's ask this question. But at the end of that, they did approve witnesses, but only one witness testimony was read into the record because they wanted to get to the vote. And they got to the vote by Sunday. On Sunday, they voted 67 as needed. They voted 57 to convict, 43 to acquit. 57 guilty, 43 not guilty. That's what acquit and convict mean, right? 10 short of the 67 needed. Now, around the world, it's like, what? 57 to 43? Shouldn't you take action? No. The Constitution makes it 67. And we can't change that without constitutional amendment. And the truth of the matter is, it's not about the vote in terms of acquittal. There will never be a president removed under this standard because the political party system will prevent that from happening. Until Mitt Romney's vote a year ago, no Republican had voted against a Republican president. No Democrat had voted against a Democratic president. The political party system will prevent any president, no matter what they do, from being removed by this. That's not the point. The point is, all the evidence now has been put into the historical record. And more importantly, what has happened is that everybody back home, now remember, Lee and Romney are there by the consent of the governed, we the people of Utah. This is a political process, not a legal one. Politics are how we make decisions in a democracy. And so this is how we make decisions. We look how Lee voted. Do we like how he voted? Do we like his voting record? If so, 2 years from now, we can decide to keep him on or to hire somebody else. That's the politics of it. All politics is local in this situation. I'll get back to that in a second. Romney chose to vote another way. In 4 years, he will be up for office. And so we want to know how he voted and what they said about that vote. So we can make a judgment politically with our votes, whether we want to keep them or not. So it's to set the historical record, and trust me, that 13 minutes will be played from now till eternity in every single political science and history class in US history from now on. As long as the Republic lasts, if it's 250 more years, this will still be the moment. Just like we used to teach Nixon, now we're going to teach this one instead. And guess what, right? That's important. People need to know their history, but also we need to decide whether our leaders represented us well or not. It's that simple. And every state has a different character, different personality, and are going to make different decisions. So here's how this works. 2 research questions. I'm not going to tell you what Lee said. I'm not going to tell you what Romney said. That's entirely up to you to find out. This needs to be as detailed as possible. And in the few I've been able to look at so far, they've done a brilliant job with the research. So if you start out, I believe, no, you can't, no. Romney said, exact quote. Lee said, exact quote. You can cut and paste. You might have to summarize it to get it within the 500 or 600 words so that, it shouldn't be that long, but it should be detailed. Every sentence should give us some indication as to why they voted the way they did. So you're looking at them. You're looking at primary source material here. You guys remember that term, primary source material. Then Romney, he voted guilty. Why? Your job is to summarize what he said. Lee voted to acquit, not guilty. Your job is to summarize what he said. If you had any opinion up here, I'll mark you down for that, because that's not research. That's just filling a bunch of words in to kill space, that meaning I didn't do enough research. Now, where does your opinion come in? In a separate essay. You do the research first, and then we got this EQ essay, 250 words, opinion essay. What is your opinion of Lee's vote and his comments about that vote? What is your opinion of Romney's vote and his comments on that vote? Now, the reason I'm doing this is, first of all, I think it's the most important writing assignment I've ever given. Second of all, we have a wide range of opinions at UCAS, and it's enlightening and fun to read them. And all opinions are going to be respected. So don't say, oh, I want to say this because he might like this better now. No, I'm neutral, man. I'm Switzerland. Okay. I've got Democrat friends, I've got Republican friends, I've got independent friends. I listen to them all. I learn from all of them. And I learn from you. In your research paper is just this part. In the research paper, we'll have a chance for you to express your opinion on what you've researched later after you submit your early turn-in papers. Let's take a look at that too. Basically, and I forgot to do this last hour, but darn it. If you go down here to the instructions, I have pulled the study guide off the website temporarily until day 60. I won't let you submit until day 60. You can't do the research unless you get about 55, 56, 57 days, you can start making some judgments. But I put the instructions right here for you. And so here it is, turn-in day 20th, early turn-in the 1st. Okay, the first day you can turn it in is the 20th of March, that's day 60. I'll post it the day before, that's a Friday. So you can, if you've written it already, you just cut and paste from your Google Doc and away you go. But then if you early turn in, I will help you get that to an A. It's like an inoculation. It's like a vaccination. You're not going to get sick when the day comes in and you haven't done the research, and you get half credit on a research paper. And it's, by the way, it's 15% of your grade if you lose that much. So you're looking at a B instead of an A. So don't leave it to chance. Take my help. I'm offering it. But if I don't get it by April 1st, I can't get through them all and get them back to you in time to resubmit by May 1st. No resubmissions, no submissions after the 1st of May, right? At midnight. All right, now, do not submit a link to a Google Doc. I won't accept that because I'm taking the research papers in a PDF format and making them available to the university. And I can't do that with a link that's sketchy and iffy and make them do extra work. Okay. So it's just, I'm just gonna, you gotta copy and paste from your Google Doc into the form. The way I would do it is really simple, is I would simply take the 4 questions like this, right? And oh, by the way, check your word count, tools, word count, boom, 97, obviously short, right? People ask me, how do you check that? You know whether I wrote 300 words or not? It's simple. I just copy and paste it into Google Docs, count the words, and if you only have half of them in there, I mark half off. It just takes 2 seconds. So write it in advance. These are the questions. It's all on this little helpful little thing here, and you can get it all written down, get your data in there, and then just copy and paste it over to the final document. All right, so that's how that works. And hopefully this will help you do that. Take my help, get it in by April 1st, between March 20th and April 1st, and I'll give you a hand with it. Okay, so now let's get back to the regularly scheduled lecture. And the one that I said I would help you with, the one I'm committed to helping you with, is the first one. The whole situation here, I'm gonna redo this. Let's see if I can. Is the healthcare one, okay? So let's go ahead and get to the start of this lecture. And I'm going to give you some data right now that can help you with the healthcare one. First of all, we're in day 29. So this week is 28 to 34. You can't submit till you get to day 60. That's understood, right? You need to get enough information. One of the things you got to track carefully is the passage of this law funding all the things Biden wants to do to protect the country from the COVID crisis and repair the economy. That's huge, $1.9 trillion, and that's working its way through Congress as we speak. This right here is his promise to vaccinate 100 million people in 100 days. Now, by the way, that sounded ambitious back earlier, but guess what? It's not so ambitious now. It looks like they're going to hit it, but and everybody now wants them to do more, right? So if they can exceed that goal, that would be great. But as we look here, January 30th, remember the vaccination program for the first couple of months was not very good. It just didn't work. It was a mess. 10 days, started to sort itself out a little bit. Utah gets to a 0.5% rate. February 1st, almost 2%. February 7th, 3.14 and 5.07 as of the holiday. But we looked up this morning, we'll do that with you right now. I want to show you this site. This is the premier site in the world that tracks infectious diseases. It's at the Johns Hopkins University. These guys have been doing this forever. They actually did the Spanish flu back in 1918 and tracked it all over the world. Now, as of this morning, 5.21. When we get to 10%, then Biden said, I will be a president for all of America, not just those that voted for me. Well, Utah didn't vote for Biden. Is he going to treat us the same and fulfill that promise? Well, it looks like absolutely yes, it's happening. So Utah's getting a fair shake here, based on our population. And so if we get to 10%, that's our share of the 100 million. It's pretty easy math when you compare the population of Utah to the population of the whole country. But you dig deeper into this, and this is kind of some good news because just a month and a half ago, our beds were occupied way up to here, and the healthcare people were just swamped. It was bad. Now, those numbers have been knocked down. These are the ones in COVID ICU beds. That's a lot, but we're not where we were. We were way up here. And so we're over 70%. So it's getting better. Now, there's also hotspots, right? The truth of the matter is that in some counties, either they're just haven't reported cases, totally yet, but it's what counties are in trouble. Well, 9% down on the Navajo Reservation in San Juan County. Utah County, 35 people out of 100,000 are testing positive per 100,000. Wasatch County, look at Summit County, 41%, that's Park City. Salt Lake is doing better than we are, but they wear masks up there. A lot more mask wearing up there than you see in Utah County or Tooele County. My guess is Wasatch County too. So they're, despite the bigger population, they seem to be doing better, and Davis County too. So this is kind of where it's at. And that means Utah County is in a red zone. Okay, we'll talk about that in a second. 1% of the population Native American, yet that 4% of the people have passed away. What's the root cause of that? What can be done better down there? Same thing with our Latino population. 14% of the population of Utah is Latino, but 23% of the cases. What's going on there? What can we do to help? 16% of those that have passed away, it's disproportionately higher among these groups, right? There's some other data down here. Does Utah meet the recommended testing criteria? No, we don't test enough. We got to start contact tracing. And so let's kind of take the next step here. And this is all data that I'm giving you right now. And one of the other pieces of data I want to give you is that Biden bought 200 million more doses the other day, just a few days ago. That brings us up to 600 million doses that we've already bought in advance, so we can get to June and hopefully get anybody that wants a vaccination their first and second one. But here's the deal. We have found 7 new variants in Utah. Everybody's talking about the one from South Africa and the one from Brazil and the one from England. But hey, guess what? They mutate here too. And we found 7 different mutations. The spike protein is altering slightly. That's why it's more contagious. And so it looks like we're all going to need an update in the fall. And we're going to have to continue to wear masks because the variants are sneaky. And we've got to now modify the vaccine to meet that demand. Okay, so while we're making progress, we're not out of the woods yet. In fact, 92%, this is important, 92% of American school students are in red zones, 92%. We get to Australia where everything's normal when we get to low transmission rate. It's got to be below 3%. We're way up there. Okay, so what does that mean? Right? The CDC just released these new guidelines and said, if you're in the red zone, and by the way, the Biden administration had to back up a little bit because I guess they just didn't realize how many red zones there would be. But if we're in a red zone, which we are, I just showed you that in the data, here's where the most restrictions have to be. Elementary schools can stay open. Why? It looks like the little kids don't transmit it. They're not the super spreaders that you adults are. So middle schools and high schools are recommended to go hybrid or virtual only. And that's what we're doing here at UCAS. My class is completely virtual. You're attending the virtual class, right? But you're in person. You could, like I said, just do this from home. I mean, it's the same class. It won't change any. So that because we have so many people coming and going, I got 5 right now who normally are in class who are now at home. So we have to make it easy for them to go back and forth without any penalty. So we teach the same class. We have to wear masks. We have to socially distance. We have to clean like crazy, which is what you're doing. And then we have to do contact tracing and give your school a lot of credit. They're doing everything right so far that I can tell. And they're testing everybody. Why? Because if one of you tests positive, then you need to be quarantined until you're not positive anymore. But also all of those that you're nearby need to quarantine too for a period of time. And we can only know that by testing. This means the rest of the school can stay open safely. Now, if you're home, once you're past the quarantine period, which is now, I think, only 10 days with a test, then you test again, negative, come back in, no problem. So this is the way it has to work to get out of the red zone. But my guess is we're still going to be wearing masks all next year. There's no way out. Why? Because people didn't choose to wear masks originally like they did in Australia. In Australia, they just shut the country down last March. They went into their winter with masks on. They came out of it. Now they're in their summer and everything's back to normal. We can do that too, but it takes 95% of people wearing masks when they're out in public, when they're not around just their family members. Now, why are restaurants and bars so bad? Well, one recommendation is if you're going to open schools, you got to close down bars and indoor dining. It's simple. If you got a mask on and they've got a mask on and you come within proximity of somebody who's infected, you're not going to catch it just walking by them. You have to be in their presence for a while for it to billow out and spread. Have you ever seen this like in a cold day like today when people are breathing out into the snow and it creates this mist and kind of a fog? That's how fast this can spread. And if you're within that zone for a few minutes with the new variants or 5 minutes, 10 minutes with the old one, you're going to get it. So what happens here in a bar is people take their masks off to drink. Plus it's crowded. Plus, they hang around and stay forever. They just don't walk in, pick up their order, and walk out. Same thing with restaurants. If you have this heavy indoor dining, people have to take their mask off to eat, and they're spreading around. And it goes further than you think. Just go out in a cold day and see how far your breathing goes without a mask on. Then compare it with a mask, and you'll get it. Many places are doing the following, like in Jakarta. This is a great country, wonderful food. They wrote an article in the Jakarta Post, 7 ways social distancing will change dining. One of them is they're putting up these screens between visitors. Simple, cheap, able to do it all over the country. Restaurants have a lot of money, some don't. Some restaurants are closing down. They've laid off staff. That's where a lot of the unemployment is. But here's the thing. In London, this very swanky restaurant along the Thames built these little glass houses, and each family can go in there and have their own little private dining experience looking on the Thames. By the way, it's really cold and ugly in London right now. And so this would be kind of fun. And then this is my favorite. It's like this cone of silence. If you're familiar with an old movie, Get Smart. But anyway, point is this works too. So you sit in there, your little bubble, and you don't spread it to your server. The people really at risk are servers who have to help customers who won't wear masks and can't because they got to eat. So indoor dining is a problem. So what's our president doing with all of that? Well, he's issuing these guidelines and whatever. He's also getting more vaccine purchased, 600 million doses so far. I think that's a good data point you could put in there. Since Biden took over, has the infection rate slowed down? Absolutely. Remember, he was the one that said, let's wear masks for 100 days. Look at the difference. I just cheered when I saw that 60. Now it's still not good. What's good? Under 10,000. But still, look at where it was, 250,000 a day when he inherited the problem on January 20th. But 100 days of mask wearing, look, got a glip there. I don't wonder what caused that, but down we go. This is good. Then we got to contact trace and make sure it doesn't flare up again. We got to do everything right, or it's just going to come right back and hit us again. So we have a president that is acting, and also too, a lot of people have lost their health care. They lost their jobs, like in the food industry and so on. So what's he doing about that? Well, there was a law passed by Congress called Obamacare, which allows poor people to get a program called Medicaid, where we pay for their health care if they're very poor. Or if they have a little money, can buy a premium through a thing called the exchange through Obamacare. It covers about 55 million people total. Obamacare itself, the exchange, well, the last 4 years, they've tried to get rid of it, but they couldn't get rid of it. Why? Because it's a law passed by Congress. So despite one presidential order after another to weaken it, it didn't go away. Yeah, about 3-4 million people dropped it, but 9-10 million people kept it. And now Biden is saying, let's go back and quit trying to water this down. Let's build it back up again. And he's opened the window, because usually it's January where you sign up. Open it up to now. If you've lost your job and whatever, and you need healthcare now, go to the exchange, sign up. We'll get you a plan. We'll get you taken care of. That is action. And it's going to affect millions of people. My guess is 4, 5, 6 million, maybe 10 million people. And here is the lesson to be learned. Presidential orders are temporary. Laws are the important things that last. If you don't pass a lot of important laws, your presidency isn't effective. Presidential orders are only written to faithfully execute a law passed by Congress. In other words, to apply it, to make it work. If you do a presidential order and it doesn't go along with the law, it can be challenged in court. But if it's in faithful compliance with the law, then it will be a positive thing. And it only lasts as long as this person's in the seat. So presidential orders signed in the past are erased when the next president decides to erase them, or Congress decides to do it. Now, Biden has erased so many presidential orders, it's been like almost a daily project, right? And this is probably this most important one. And this goes to the heart of your essay.
And I've signed executive orders tackling COVID-19, economic and climate crises, as well as advancing racial equity. But today I'm about to sign two executive orders that are basically the best way to describe them, to undo the damage Trump has done. There's nothing new that we're doing here other than restoring the Affordable Care Act and restoring the Medicaid to the way it was before Trump became president, which by fiat he changed, made more inaccessible, more expensive, and more difficult for people to qualify for either of those two items, the Affordable Care Act or Medicaid. And the second order I'm going to be signing also changes what the president's done, the president, what former president has done, and that a memorandum reversed my predecessor's attack on women's health, health access, and as we continue to battle COVID-19, even more critical, Americans have meaningful access to health care. And so that's what I'm about to do. And again, I'm not initiating any new law, any new aspect of the law. This is going back to what the situation was prior to the president's executive order.
Now, he said it right. Presidents can't write laws or make up stuff with presidential orders. He's just restoring what the law originally said. And here's how you do it.
And the first one I'm going to be signing here is the Strengthen Medicaid and the Affordable Care Act. And of all times that we need to reinstate access to, affordability of, and extent of access to Medicaid is now in the middle of this COVID crisis.
Okay, so he signs it, and then it becomes the policy that is enacted upon by the federal government to follow this faithfully executing the law situation. So many people confuse presidential orders with laws. Laws last, presidential orders only the time that president is in the seat. And so that's kind of important to remember. Okay, so now let's move ahead. And we see now that we're now going to flip gears here a little bit, because now we're going to talk about the trial, the assignment you have to do this week. Now, let me go back to the lessons of Reagan, right? Reagan, everybody loved Reagan. I don't know anybody who didn't like him. He's one of those guys, Republican, GOP, former governor of California, comes into the office. He was shot early in his presidency, almost assassinated, almost died, survived that. He made his mistakes, but he studied those mistakes, figured out what went wrong, and apologized. But he also compromised. The thing about Reagan is he believed in the big tent. He said, the person who agrees with you 80% of the time is a friend and an ally, not a 20% traitor. And you heard me say this last time, but I have Democrat, Republican, and independent friends. And we all agree on 95% of everything. We all agree we had to plow our snow, our sidewalks today. We all agree that we want safe streets. We all agree we want good schools. We differ just slightly on how to approach that. And we can have a nice debate and discussion on that. But we agree on so much. We all want a great country. We all want things to work well. We all want this coronavirus to go away. We all agree on that. Just because we differ on some specifics, we should listen to those ideas. Then maybe somebody else's ideas are better than our own. And then Tip O'Neill, who was a Democrat, who worked so well with Reagan to get so many things that Reagan wanted passed as a Democrat, the Speaker of the House, most powerful person in the House. He once said this, though, all politics is local. And this is really important to remember. In Utah, we have two senators, Lee and Romney, right? How is Utah going to respond to their vote when they voted so differently? Well, let's go ahead and look how some others have done it. For example, there were 6 other Republicans that voted to convict. All of them, but Romney, have been censured by their state Republican parties, either at the county level or even at the state level. Richard Burr, he's been a senator from North Carolina forever, highly regarded. His own political party, in unanimous vote, wrote this: the North Carolina GOP, Republican Party, agrees with the strong majority of Republicans in both the U.S. House of Representatives and Senate that the Democrat-led attempt to impeach the former president lies outside the Constitution. Burr fired back, as did Ben Sasse, as did the senator from Louisiana, as did Lisa Murkowski. Wasn't She wasn't in Alaska, and neither was Collins, to my knowledge, yet. But he fired back. Burr said, "It's a sad day for North Carolina Republicans. My party's leadership has chosen loyalty to one man over the core principles of the Republican Party and the founders of our great nation." Now, here's the deal. Why would he say something like that? Because not everybody in his state is a Republican. The truth of the matter is this: the Republicans and the Democrats, maybe there's 20 to 25% Democrats in his state, 20, 25% Republicans, but the majority of people are independents, and all the people vote for Senate. Here's the problem, though, for those Republicans. It's getting the nomination from your party in the first place. If Burr runs again, he's got to go to just the Republicans and get the nomination of the party to run in the fall. And it only takes 1% of that Republican Party, in other words, a smaller faction, to give you that nomination. So he'll face primary challenges. He'll have other people run against him based on that vote. And how will this smaller group decide, which may only be 5% of all the people in the state of North Carolina are going to pick the candidates? Democrats go through the same process. They look at the candidates, try to pick a good one. They pick one as well, and then they face in November. And all these independents, all these people that vote in November, I got to vote, I chose, but they didn't choose those candidates. The political parties have given you only two choices. The only way you can really impact who gets to run is it's easy to do, go to a political party primary and vote for the person that's going to be on the ballot 5-6 months later. Let's give Utah as an example. Whoever comes out of the Republican primary in the summer, and it's September this year, was going to be the next governor of the state of Utah. The Democrats do not have the votes. This is an R15 state, Republicans plus 15. So here's what happened. We had 5 or 6 candidates run for governor in the Republican primary. Cox did not get the majority. He got a plurality. He narrowly beat out a former governor and former ambassador named Huntsman, and there were 3 or 4 other candidates that took votes away. So he got the vote without 50% of the Republicans. But because he got the most votes, he ran for governor, and it was over. He was never going to lose. And I think he won by 65% or something like that. The parties pick the candidates. Now, here is the purpose of a political party. You've heard me say this before, but it's to win elections. To win elections, you can't let the extremes of your party pick candidates that don't appeal to the vast majority of voters who are the independents in the middle. I showed you that one chart, right? 84% approval for the former president among Republicans, 4% among Democrats, 30% among independents. You got to get your independent number up to 50%. And that is politics. It's how we make decisions in a democracy. If you want to get double down on your decision, get involved in the primaries. It's easy, just show up. There's no cost to it. And it's kind of fun, actually. But help pick the candidates before you're left with just 2 choices that you're not happy with. All right, so now we're asking the question, all right, after all this trial, days of trial, Lee voted to acquit, not guilty. Romney voted to convict, guilty, right? Okay, now we're the voters. We let them govern us through our consent. Every single person in that room, look at me now, look at me, you can vote in the next election when Lee will be open for a vote. For 2 years after that, Romney will be up again for a re-election. So you get it. You're the one that will decide if you want to give them the mandate to do what they do. Look, here's the thing. We send them to represent us. How did they do? So there's 2 reasons to have this trial. Never was going to convict. It was never going to happen, right? It just wasn't. But it became the most bipartisan in history when 7 Republicans jumped ship. The only other Republican that had ever done that was Romney. Republicans vote for Republican presidents. Democrats vote for Democratic presidents. And that's why this will never lead to a conviction. It never will. There's just not the votes. You can't get a 60 7 to 33 vote. But that's not the important part. The important part is now all of this is in the historical record. That 13 minutes, all of that will be played in every political science class and every history class till the end of the Republic. And let's hope it lasts another 250 years as a very important lesson in political science and history classes. And the other side of it is this: we then can decide whether our elected representatives represented us well or not. In all these other states, they're going after these Republicans who voted their conscience. They voted what they felt. Guy in Louisiana is getting a lot of heat, but not in Utah. Utah, this is one of those days, and there's many of them, where you just got to be proud to be from Utah. Because in Utah, here's the story. I don't think, and this is an opinion here, but we're not Alabama. Our politics is not South Carolina. Our politics is not North Carolina. We're very different cultures, very different past, very different history. And we tend to be more pragmatic about things out here in the West. You kind of have to be. Now, here's the deal. The Republican Party in Utah, again, this is all Republican today, right? Rejected, quote, unanimity of thought in a statement asking, there was a small group that wanted to petition and censure Romney, and they said, no, we're not going to do it. We didn't do it last time. We're not going to do it this time. And they said this, I love this quote. This will be in the lecture as long as I'm here, which hopefully is 5 or 6 more years. But the differences between our own Utah Republicans showcase a diversity of thought, in contrast to the danger of a party fixated on unanimity of thought. According to the statement, there is power in our differences as a political party, and we look forward to each senator explaining their votes to the people of Utah. And it could be that both of them had good reasons for how they voted. And maybe you'll agree with those, maybe you won't, but it's up to you because you're the one that's going to vote. And that's why this research is so important. I'm not telling you what they said. I'm not telling you what they did. I'm telling you how they voted, but I'm not telling you what they said about it. You got to find out what they said about it and evaluate it for yourself. Now, this is important too. Acquittal, not guilty, does not mean you're innocent. That's important to remember. Acquittal means a jury has found you not guilty, which is a legal status. It's not exoneration. Exoneration means that evidence has been produced that proves that a person cannot be guilty of a crime. Let me give you an example. Say somebody commits a murder, is accused of that, but then in the middle of the trial, the defense attorneys release some new DNA evidence that proves that person could not possibly have committed the crime. That's exoneration. And they'll just stop the trial right there. So it's not guilty is not the same as exoneration. It's not. And the most important speech given was by Mitch McConnell, the Republican leader of the Senate. And this is the one that would be played over and over again as well, like Romney's was last time. But before we do that, let's listen to a pretty interesting argument by the defense attorneys. This is one I think we should listen to.
If my colleagues on this side of the chamber actually think that President Trump committed a criminal offense, and let's understand, a high crime is a felony and a misdemeanor is a misdemeanor. The words haven't changed that much over the time. After he's out of office, you go and arrest him. So there is no opportunity where the president of the United States can run rampant in January, the end of his term, and just go away scot-free. The Department of Justice does know what to do with such people. And so far, I haven't seen any activity in that direction. And not only that, the people who stormed this building and breached it were not accused of conspiring with the president. But the section I read, judgment, in other words, the bad thing that can happen, the judgment, in cases of impeachment, i.e. what we are doing, shall not extend further than removal from office. What is so hard about that? Which of those words are unclear? Shall not extend further than removal from office. President Trump no longer is in office. The object of the Constitution has been achieved. He was removed, by the voters.
Okay, now that I thought was a pretty substantial argument, in my opinion, my humble opinion, worth listening to. But notice he said, I'm not going to get away with anything, because if there was a crime committed, then the criminal justice system can take over, and Article 3, the courts can take over. And when he said that, no actions had been taken, but there is a case now working its way against the former president in Georgia for the felony of interfering with an election. So we'll see what happens with that. And if that does proceed, then we'll show you how the Article 3 works. Because right now we're talking about Article 1. Okay, so Article 3, if that happens, we'll go in and show you the process, and you guys can make your own judgments on that. But here's the thing. When you go to the criminal justice system, to a criminal court, it's a lot different story than here in the political Article 1 solution. It's not political, it's legal, it's different. And there's penalties, and jail time could be attached. Now, Mitch McConnell's speech was not an exoneration either.
Little bit more time. Thanks so much.
You're looking live now on the floor of the Senate. The minority leader, Mitch McConnell, delivering remarks. Let's listen.
Falsehoods by the most powerful man on earth because he was angry he lost an election. Former President Trump's actions preceded the riot were a disgraceful dereliction of duty. The House accused the former president of, quote, incitement. That is a specific term from the criminal law. Let me just put that aside for a moment and reiterate something I said weeks ago. There's no question, none, that President Trump is practically and morally responsible for provoking the events of the day. No question about it. The people who stormed this building believed they were acting on the wishes and instructions of their president. And having that belief was a foreseeable consequence of the growing crescendo of false statements, conspiracy theories, and reckless hyperbole kept shouting into the largest megaphone on planet Earth. The issue is not only the president's intemperate language on January 6th. It is not just his endorsement of remarks in which an associate urged, quote, trial by combat. It was also the entire manufactured atmosphere of looming catastrophe, the increasingly wild myths about a reverse landslide election that was somehow being stolen, some secret coup by our now president. Now, I defended the president's right to bring any complaints to our legal system. The legal system spoke. The Electoral College spoke. As I stood up and said clearly at that time, the election was settled. It was over. But that just really opened a new chapter of even wilder, and more unfounded claims. The leader of the free world cannot spend weeks thundering that shadowy forces are stealing our country and then feign surprise when people believe him and do reckless things. Now, sadly, many politicians sometimes make overheated comments or use metaphors. We saw that unhinged listeners might take literally, but that was different. That's different from what we saw. This was an intensifying crescendo of conspiracy theories orchestrated by an outgoing president who seemed determined to either overturn the voters' decision or else torch our institutions on the way out. The unconscionable behavior did not end when the violence actually began. Whatever our ex-president claims he thought might happen that day, whatever reaction he says he meant to produce, by that afternoon, we know he was watching the same live television as the rest of us. A mob was assaulting the Capitol in his name. These criminals were carrying his banners, hanging his flags, and screaming their loyalty to him. It was obvious that only President Trump could end this. He was the only one who could. Former aides publicly begged him to do so. Loyal allies frantically called the administration. The president did not act swiftly. He did not do his job. He didn't take steps so federal law could be faithfully executed and order restored. No. Instead, according to public reports, he watched television happily, as the chaos unfolded. Kept pressing his scheme to overturn the election. Now, even after it was clear to any reasonable observer that Vice President Pence was in serious danger, even as the mob, carrying Trump banners, was beating cops and breaching perimeters, the president sent a further tweet attacking his own vice president. Now, predictably and foreseeably, under the circumstances, members of the mob seem to interpret this as a further inspiration to lawlessness and violence, not surprisingly. Later, even when the president did half-heartedly begin calling for peace, he didn't call right away for the riot to end. He did not tell the mob to depart until even later. And even then, with police officers bleeding and broken glass covering Capitol floors, he kept repeating election lies and praising the criminals. In recent weeks, our ex-president's associates have tried to use the 74 million Americans who voted to re-elect him as a kind of human shield against criticism. Using the 74 million who voted for him as a kind of a human shield against criticism. Anyone who decries his awful behavior is accused of insulting millions of voters. That's an absurd deflection. 74 million Americans did not invade the Capitol. Hundreds of rioters did. 74 million Americans did not engineer the campaign of disinformation and rage that provoked it. One person did, just one. I've made my view of this episode very plain. But our system of government gave the Senate a specific task. The Constitution gives us a particular role. This body is not invited to act as the nation's overarching moral tribunal. We're not free to work backward from whether the accused party might personally deserve some kind of punishment. Justice Joseph Story, our nation's first great constitutional scholar, as he explained nearly 200 years ago, the process of impeachment and conviction is a narrow tool.
We'll stop there with the narrow tool, and he goes and explained why he voted to acquit his voters back in Kentucky. So that was the speech of the whole trial, guys. So have a great day. Again, if you get snowed in later this week, just pick up class online, no worries, and off we go.